Welcome to our first mini make it series video tutorial. We are crafting the basket today. I apologize for my missing yesterday. I hope I didn't miss anybody. If I ever say I'm going to be live and I'm not and you're waiting, you can message me and say, hey, where are you? For some reason, I thought I'd scheduled all of the tutorials for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, not Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So anyways, I apologize for that. And if you're able to hop on live with me, say hi, let me know what you're doing. Are you crafting? Are you just watching? Are you just popping in real quick to see what it's all about? Let me know. Okay. Because I am creating a product that is doable in 30 minutes or less, I am going to run a timer. Let me lower that. Make sure it's in view here. Because I want to really show that you guys can do this. And honestly, I'll probably take a little bit. I'll take up to the 30 minutes, but you could probably get them done faster because I like to talk a lot. Oh, excuse me. I'm not going to start my timer quite yet. Let me just get prepped here and get my paints. For those of you that have paint, you have the colors to complete this in your kit with brushes, a sanding block, and glue, and makeup wedges. And so we are just going to paint it just like this. So let's get started. Hello, hello. Let's see if I've got anyone on the comments quite yet. Not yet. Just want to make sure I have both screens up here. So I'm using a streaming service to help me record and produce a better video, a cleaner video. But sometimes that will crash on me, so I have to have both of them open. All right, let's get into it. Let's start this. 30 minutes. So when you first get your project, you want to lay out all your pieces to make sure that you are painting the right one. So that you have two pieces like this. This one is your front piece. It will go on the front like this. And then if I flip this up, this piece will go on the back. And that creates a sandwich and a little gap here that our inserts fit into. So all of the inserts will have a little tab here and they just slide into that. So in essence, we don't have to paint this one. And I'm not going to paint the backs. You're more than welcome to. But I tend to just put mine on the shelf where I'm not going to see them. The other pieces here that we don't need to paint are these spacers. So if I lay my front of my basket here, I put these spacers here, then the handles, this allows the handles to sit flush with the basket top here, right? So it'll sit like that. So I'm going to lift those off. We do not need to paint these. These are a sandwich piece that I'm going to set aside. And then we have our base. So really, all the pieces that we need to paint are this one that have the score marks to show you where these sit. The front there, the main piece, your slotted stand, your basket handles, and your basket screws or knobs or whatever you want to call those that allow your handles to move around. So I'm going to start by grabbing some masking tape. If you don't have masking tape, you can use Scotch tape or washi tape. Just don't use anything that's a super sticky tape. Not something low tack. That's not going to, cause your piece to tear out. So We're just going to tape them down. One, that helps make sure I don't lose them, and two, I can paint them easier when they're attached to something. So we're going to start with our main color, which is going to be this falcon brown or any dark brown that you have. And actually, you can paint your basket any color you want. I've painted a couple, and I'll post pictures of the examples that I've done. I did a white basket during a live when we were introducing it, and then I did a light brown basket as I was kind of just playing with some different ideas when I was developing the product. So I'll post both those pictures so you can kind of get some ideas on different ways that you can paint your basket. So I'm going to just use a large flat brush. You could use something like this, even a little smaller. Doesn't have to be this big, but this just tends to be one I grab. It's one of my favorites. I think it was from Hobby Lobby, but whatever you have. Okay, so I'm going to start by painting the entire thing this dark brown. Wood is super porous. It likes to just really soak up that paint. So as I'm painting, you'll kind of see it starts to get scratchy and it gets hard to pull that paint and push that paint around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip my brush in a little bit of water, tap out most of it. I just want my brush to be damp. That's really going to help me push that paint around a lot easier. Loosens up the paint and it gives me a little bit more pull and push. You can see how I'm able to just take that paint and go just a little bit further with it. When you're painting wood pieces or any kind of DIY craft, I recommend always going with multiple light coats. Acrylic paint dries super fast, so I know the thought of, oh, I got to paint multiple coats, it's going to take forever, I have to let it dry. When actually, if you paint light coats, it dries a lot faster. So light coats, multiple light coats, and it allows you to get a smoother finish as opposed to, globbing paint on, and you're always fighting ridges and lines in your paint. So there we go. Okay, I'm going to do the same with the other pieces. The other thing you can do is do a stained look. So let me show you that real quick. I love having baby wipes on hand. They're not necessary, but I couldn't craft without them. You can use a old wet rag if you have it, but I'm going to dip that in this and create this really pretty stained look where we still see that wood grain kind of coming through that color. So I think I'm going to do that on my handles here. Since I have it out, I'll just finish up this way. So either painted or a stained method works really great for the basket. And I'm going to stain the base. And you'll notice I'm just using an acrylic paint. You don't need an actual wood oil-based stain to create a stained look. Just watered down paint works too. If you don't have a baby wipe, if you water your paint down, that works too. I just like this method because I can get a little more control over it. But let me just show you. If I dip my brush in water and not tap it out or rinse it out so it's full of water, a brush can actually hold quite a bit. I can just come in and create it's almost like a watercolor even. Notice how it kind of creates that faux stained look as well. But it's a lot lighter than that side. So that's the difference. Using the watered down method, you get a lighter color, whereas if you use a baby wipe, it's a little bit darker. These little guys, I want them to stay light, so I'm just barely putting a little bit of this brown on here. Really, that's all I'm going to do with those guys. All right. So we've got our pieces painted. Now we have this really pretty basket weave where I have some darker areas and some lighter areas. So I'm going to use my baby wipe here, and I'm going to just go through and kind of rub areas that I want it to be a little lighter. Kind of just removing some of that paint. You can also use like a sanding block if you want. This is just one method. This only works if your paint is still wet. So mine's still a little damp, so this is why I'm just kind of going in there. And I'm focusing on the pieces that run right now horizontal. So I've got this piece, this here, and then I drop down a line, and I'm going to grab these two, drop down a line, and then I've got this one, and this one. And then I'm going to go and grab these ones. There's not a lot of paint being removed because it is drying up pretty fast, but I am able to just get a little bit removed to lighten it up in certain spots. Okay. When you're doing this faux stain method, if you want your pieces to be a little bit darker, you can always just rub on a little more paint. All right, there we are. I'm going to grab some of this lighter brown warm sand and some white. If you don't have a light brown, you can just add white to your dark brown. And at this point, I am going to switch to a smaller flat so that I can focus on really bringing out the weave of the basket. So these top ones here, I want to be a lighter color. They're kind of hitting the light. They're worn because they're further out. So I added a little bit of water to my paint, had a little bit of water in my brush, and I'm grabbing this light brown, and I'm just going to take it and drag it across. It's got a little too much paint there. I'm going to go back over it and kind of pick up some of that paint. Okay. Then we're going to skip this next line and go to the second line down, and find those large rectangles. Those are the pieces that I want to have lightened up. I got just a sliver of one right there. And then a little square over here. Okay. And then I'm going to drop down another line. We have another line here, and I'm going to color in or paint in those large squares. Okay. And they're all varying. They all look a little different, and that's okay. I kind of like how it's a little bit different. Some look a little more worn than others, right? But we can start to see some of that weave come through. Now we're going to work our way up and down. And I'm going to add just a little bit of that dark brown to my light brown, just to get like a third color going on to give me a little more dimension. So for this one, I start right in the middle. It just makes sense for me. I'm just going to take that and create a line here and then down here. And then I'm going to go to the right. I'm going to skip a line and find my next large rectangles. Okay, I'm going to skip a line and find my next large rectangles going vertical. Now we're going to go the other way, skip, find our large rectangles. Okay, skip. We have one large rectangle on this side and then just a little sliver down here. And then there we go. You can already see how that weave is really starting to pop. We're really starting to see these small squares that look super dark. Okay. All right, I'm going to let this sit and dry for just a minute, and let's go and highlight our pieces here and add some highlight to them. I'm going to get some black out as well. So I want the top of this part of my basket to be lightened. So I'm going to add the falcon brown to my brush, just a titch. And then I'm going to add a little of the warm sand, the lighter brown, or white if you don't have a light brown will work. And I'm just kind of mixing it on the side of my palette here until it's a little bit lighter, kind of looking the way I want. And I'm just going to lightly brush that on the top. I'm just starting to get a little bit of a highlight up there, more soft. Add a little white to it, lighten it up even more. Kind of just play around with your colors. There's no right or wrong with adding highlights. I do like to have my paint a little bit watered down. It allows me to be a little bit more generous with it. And then I use my finger and just kind of rub it in. Kind of give it a fade in. It softens up that line. You can see how that looks a little bit lighter at the top there. Not quite as much as I want. So I'm going to go just a little more white up here. Use my finger and soften it up. Okay. And I'm going to do the same with my handles here. Get a little more water on my brush just to soften up that paint. Add the color, and then I just take my finger, rub right over it, and blend it in. Just kind of adding some highlights to our piece so you can kind of see how that's going to look there. I should have laid them out. So my highlight here is kind of on the top, and then my highlights here. So it's almost like the sun's coming down this way and maybe touching up on those. I'm actually going to highlight more of that middle on this piece. And then I'm going to grab a little of the dark brown and darken that edge there, because I feel like that would be more in the shadow. And maybe even go around the bottom there. And then I just take my finger and kind of blend it all in. There we go. I feel like that's a little bit more. Then I'm going to go grab more of that dark brown and grab that highlight there. Okay. All right, so this piece is ready to be sanded. I'm going to get a little sanding block. Oh, where's my bigger sander? Okay, make sure it's dry. I'm going to give it a good sanding. I've got a bunch of dust on here. That's all right. Then we're going to take and wipe it down. Get all that dust off there. There we go. Look how pretty that looks. I love this. And it's funny how every time I paint something, it's always a little bit different. I must have went a little bit lighter on this one. This one's a little bit darker, but I feel like they're both equally. I really love the darkness of this one, actually. All right. I'm going to grab my dark brown on my brush. I'm going to dip it just a titch into that black, kind of blend it on my palette here. And what I want to do is create some shadows right under where the white stripes are. So I'm just going to come in here with a little bit of black. And I go back and forth under it and then pull that paint down. Because right where this piece of the basket hits the back piece, there's going to be a little bit of a shadow. Right, so we got some black happening here, some black shadows. And as you're playing with shadows, I know that this can be a little bit intimidating, but remember that it's just paint, and if you don't like it, if it's too dark, you can always go back and paint over it. Grab a little more of that brown and just blend it back, soften it up a little bit. So I really focused on adding more black up in this corner like this here. And that just gives you that dimension that that basket is hiding behind, even though this is a flat surface. It just really adds dimension to that. Okay. All right, one last thing. I'm going to go back and add some color to where the white or the highlighted basket pieces are getting weaved under, if that makes sense. So this center vertical piece is above these two pieces. So I'm just going to add a little bit of dark right there. Then I'm going to take my finger and pull that dark that way. I'm going to turn it around, put a line of that color, pull it out, take my finger and pull it that way. Okay, so there's that one. And then we have this vertical piece is on top of these two. This goes under it. So I'm going to do the same there. Just pull that dark away from it. So I put a line of dark there. And then I just softly drag that out. This vertical piece is above these two. So we're going to put a line here and drag it. We're going to do the same opposite. There we go. So let's just take a look at what this is going to look like. I really love how this has more of a darker feel to it. And actually, I'm going to do one more thing before we glue it up. I'm going to go grab some brown on my brush, mix a little black with it, darken it up. because in essence, the bottom of this would be in a shadow. So I'm going to drag that dart all the way across and then take my finger. Actually, I'm going to grab it and just soften that color up. So as you're building your shadows up to create this look, and you're like, oh, that looks terrible, set it up like this and even just walk away from it and come back to it. And you just get a whole different perspective, because sometimes when we're creating art, whether it's painting or, trying to create these shadows, it can be discouraging because we see maybe like this black line just looks so out of place and we only focus on that. And that can just be our center focus. So sometimes walking away and coming back and going, okay, I'll come back to it and maybe just do a little touch up. And it doesn't have to be a long while. Just walk out of the room and come back to it. Turn around from it and look at it again from a different perspective can really change that. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a small liner brush, and I'm just going to add some highlights to some of the tops of these lighter stripes, weaves. Okay. And then I'm going to add some highlights to the handles. Okay. And then we're ready to glue up. Now I'm going to use a Stick Fast Instant Adhesive Glue, but you can use any glue that we've talked about in the supply list. One thing to note is what I just did, and I meant to remind you guys, don't put any glue where this tab is. And if you accidentally do, just give it time to dry before you put your insert in. Okay. Then we're going to grab these two and put a line of glue here. Put a line of glue on the other side. Line them up. And at this point, I'm just kind of making sure that they line up along the bottom and here, and that will line it up along here. It doesn't necessarily need to touch up here because this is going to cover that up. Okay. So as long as they are in line down at the bottom, it will force the others, it will force the top in line as well. I'm really just loving these little interchangeables. I just cut, well, I've cut all the months ahead, but I've cut the February's craft again. So I have to have a couple of them on hand so that I can take pictures of them unpainted and then pictures of them painted, that type of thing. And it just reminded me how much I just love these little things. So I line them up. I'm giving it just a quick little push. Where are we at on time? Oh, we got 5 minutes. I'm going to drop my little hinges in. I did have some glue already there where I placed it before, so I don't need to add any more glue there. There we are. Okay. And then all we need to do is attach the back. I just want to make sure that everything is somewhat secure before I flip it over. This glue dries fast, but sometimes just not fast enough for me. It's like how nowadays we are so impatient with computers, whereas, years ago it was just common that a computer would take, 5 minutes to do a function. And now if it takes more than 2 seconds, we're in an uproar about it. So I put glue down on this piece instead of this piece. That's another way you can do it to ensure you're not going to add glue to the tab. And then we add the backer to this, give it a push. So you could paint the back if you want. If you're not going to display this in an area where you'll see the back, you don't really need to, but that's completely up to you. Giving it a good push. We'll flip it around, and there we are. Just make sure your pieces don't shift. Mine kind of did here. Tried to get it back in there. There we go. There we are. So we have our tab up here, and then it just sits in the slotted base like such. I don't glue my slotted base in because I like the ability to take it out and store it flat. I have a lot of crafts, and so storability is important to me. But if you are just going to have this up and that's not something you're going to pack away, you can glue this and just give it a little more stability. It kind of leans back right now, but once you glue it, it would be upright. So that is completely up to you and how you are going to use your project. But I love how different those two look. And I can't wait to see your guys's. We're at 28 minutes. So perfect, even with all my gabbing and talking, you can easily create this. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoy your crafting time. This month is a little heavy on the crafting time. Don't feel like you have to do it all in one month. We have 3 projects for this month. Space them out as you want and as you need. But the next set of inserts will ship at the end of the month here. And then we'll get into the groove of things after the holidays. So I will visit with you guys tomorrow when we paint the rustic pail. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you have a great day. Happy crafting.